So far, in movie Night Automata, we've traversed the rain-stroked streets of Blade Runner, talked about grief with After Yang, gotten stuck in a box with Ex Machina, and gotten the human race back to Earth with Wall-E. We're now going to talk about one of the most iconic space movies of all time, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Kubrick's 1968 landmark achievement. Still, in 2023, 55 years after 2001 came out, references to Kubrick's highly impressive and technical film are still ubiquitous. Just this year, Greta Gerwig's Barbie movie opened with a homage to 2001. Wall-E was also filled with references to 2001. Stanley Kubrick worked with the fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke, whose short story The Sentinel formed the basis of the monolith idea of 2001. In the 1960s, two important films, the National Film Board of Canada's Universe and the World's Fair 1964 To the World and Beyond, had been produced to try to show an early realistic vision of what space travel could eventually look like.
Out of the study of hundreds of thousands of observations, astronomers have pieced together an accurate picture of the universe.
Universe had inspired many people working at NASA, especially. Arthur C. Clarke, although British, had many contacts at NASA, and in fact, the NASA website still honors him for the predictions of the future he made in his science fiction. So Kubrick and Clarke had access to many engineers and scientists who could show them the most realistic way to depict space travel.
For the control room of the Discovery, they actually built a centrifuge. I mean, this thing was bigger than a house.
But what better way to simulate the revolving centrifuge of a spaceship than to build one full size and revolve it, and 360 degrees. And it's masterful.
2001 came just 4 years after another one of Kubrick's most iconic films, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Stopped Worrying and Learned to Love the Bomb. During the making of Dr. Strangelove, Kubrick had been able to create a B-52 so realistic, he claims just from his research on planes and recreations from film crew people who had been in the military, that the US government had actually interrogated him on how he was able to depict the planes. In 2001, he took designs from NASA's ideas about the space station they were already attempting to work on. He also hired Graphics Film Corporation, which had been doing propaganda for the aerospace industry, including NASA and the US Air Force. 2001 is also what Kubrick referred to as mostly a nonverbal experience. There is obviously dialogue, especially during the scenes with Dave, played by Keir Dullea, and Douglas Rains in HAL 9000.
Do you read me, Hal? Hello, Hal, do you read me? Hello, Hal, do you read me? Do you read me, Hal?
But largely, much of the 2.5 hours of 2001's runtime is a nonverbal experience. The research that Clarke and Kubrick undertook even went as far as consulting the astronomer Carl Sagan on what extraterrestrial life might look like. Sagan claims that he suggested that the superhuman intelligence just be suggested rather than shown as characters. The experience of the monoliths, which combine machine and extraterrestrial intelligence, is something almost sacred and holy, like a religious experience, rather than the typical alien encounter. What is transmitted to the humans, first as thousands of years later through the monoliths, is information rather than speech. The monolith could be interpreted as what we consider God, a visitation from extraterrestrial forces to spur man to their advanced purpose, gifted us with a type of intelligence that allows us to use tools in advanced civilization, and the creation of artificial intelligence, our own smaller version of that, playing with fire.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I am a HAL 9000 computer. I became operational at the HAL plant in Urbana, Illinois on the 12th of January, 1992.
The moment when apes learn to use a bone tool and are gifted with the ability to overcome their rivals feels almost biblical in execution. Kubrick then transitions the story thousands of years, drawing a direct connection between the first tool and satellites as a tool for space travel. Overall, what Kubrick is trying to portray in this sweeping space epic is man's relationship with the universe. something that mere words, dialogue, or even symbolic representation has a hard time pulling into a coherent and accurate mode. Talking about man's relationship with the universe, as we all have at length, I'm sure, doesn't do it justice. There are levels to the intelligence of 2001, with human intelligence as part of the pyramid. Machine intelligence, as HAL 9000's determination to complete his objective with or without human compliance can attest, not necessarily capable of grasping the big picture either. The superhuman, extraterrestrial intelligence represented by the monolith is something wholly other. Kubrick's epic space opera sees the connections between the life cycle of man and the formation, vision, and constant expansion of the universe.
Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer, I'm half crazy, all for the love of you.
Anyway, before I introduce the panel, please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Hit that bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. Also, we are now monetized, so if you have any pressing questions during this live stream, send us a super chat, which helps show running, and which I am obligated by international law, human rights law, to answer. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/movie night extra. All of our after parties are on there forever. Okay, let me introduce the panel. Conan Neutron, host of Protonic Reversal, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, and frontman for Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends, neutronfriends.bandcamp.com. Conan Neutron and the Friends has a new split LP with Lung, Adult Prom, available now on Bandcamp. Jay Underworld, illustrator, book cover artist, artist for Gives Them an Argument, co-host for Movie Night Extravaganza, and Bad Takes. Kristina Oakes, This Barbie is streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/cosmopolitics, Twitter, Instagram at Cosmopolitics. Send her some subs on Twitch. Rayyvana is a Twitch partner, a Young Turks contributor, a disability rights advocate, and the co-host of Taking the L. Jerry Casale is the co-founder and co-lead vocalist of DEVO, as well as several other projects, including the EP The Invisible Man, which dropped last year, and Jihad Jerry and the Evildoers. DEVO is on its final tour and celebrating 50 years of DEVO. I, of course, am your host, the Forrest 9000 unit. I promise not to do anything crazy and kill the whole crew.
Don't make promises you can't keep. Jerry Casale, welcome back to the show, man. It's good to see you.
Hello. Hi.
You've been a busy spud. It's good to have you. Rayyvana, it's always good to have you as well. Now,
Yeah.
is my understanding that you had never seen 2001?
I had never seen it. This was my first time watching it, and I viewed it as Stanley Kubrick intended it to be seen on my iPhone with a cracked screen and water damage. I loved it. I'm so excited to talk about it.
Fantastic.
That's what gave Kubrick his final heart attack. He was like, he got a vision from the future that Rayyvana was going to watch Fogger 2001 on an iPhone, and he's like,
Right.
His worst nightmare. Yeah.
Jerry, I believe you saw this when it came out, right? Or somewhere near it.
Yes, I am a senior citizen. I was the right age for this movie, and we smoked some hash, and we went to see it at the best possible theater you could see anything at the time. You know, with the biggest screen, highest resolution possible. And of course, I was a believer. I totally, drank the Kool-Aid. I was there.
I had forgotten, this is, I think, like fourth time that I've seen it in preparation for the show. I'd forgotten that there was an intermission. And how nice is that, to have an intermission?
Intermission,
Yeah.
yeah.
Could use that on the Batman movie, frankly.
and not like one of those fake intermissions. And not like one of those fake intermissions where they're doing it like as a bit or something, like a real solid, like you could go out and like run out and have a smoke real quick kind of intermission.
Yeah, I'm sure they were. I'm sure there's plenty of people smoking.
Yeah, I think the first time I ever saw any parts of this movie, I was 12 years old, and I had Turner Classic Movie on, and I woke up. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and the movie was like halfway, like somewhere, like, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, this is a weird movie. Can I like start at the beginning?
That didn't help.
Yeah.
And then you're like, is this the same movie?
Yes.
Jerry, go ahead.
Well, weird. Yeah. It's weird.
Did you know Kubrick from before 2001? Were you a Kubrick fan before this came out?
Of course. Yeah. My God.
Because Strangelove was a few years before.
I couldn't get enough of that.
Yeah. You and Forrest both.
So, I mean, Strangelove, that came out right after the assassination of JFK.
Right.
And I mean, the world had turned into a Black Mirror episode for anyone who was halfway conscious. So I was 15, and I had seen the footage of JFK getting assassinated, played over and over and over all weekend on network TV with Walter Cronkite. And then I'm, growing up in a hideous situation of blue-collar Catholicism and being forced to go to church on Sunday. And I'm waiting to go to church, and they have the television on, and I see Lee Harvey Oswald being assassinated by Jack Ruby live on TV when I'm 15, 3 days later. So I grew up in interesting times.
Yeah, and it's important to remember too with this film that we all kind of give deference to Kubrick as one of the greats for filmmaking, but this is the OG space epic. I mean, there is any movie that has to do with space is going to be compared or contrasted against 2001.
Space.
Well, there's one thing you can say about
one of the next big ones is obviously Star Wars, right? Like Star Wars comes in like a decade later, and so like even like George Lucas has to give like the full deference to like, oh no, 2001 is where like a lot of these ideas originated.
Right. But what was great about Kubrick is this was not a silly man making silly movies. This is deep stuff, and he could go from one genre to the next and blow everybody away. So it was like, okay, I'm going to make a movie that takes place in outer space, but that's not even the point. And yes, it's science fiction, but it's going to start with the big word science. Fiction is the least of it. So he studied the science. And Kubrick, what I love about him is he had a dark view of human nature, just like DEVO does, and not without reason. And that theme plays throughout all of his movies, regardless of the genre. It deals with the dark side of human nature and the palpable sense of evil that all too often triumphs. And so Hal was just AI gone nuts. Way back then, think about it, 1968, and these dealings. And it's brilliant. That movie is timeless because he was a smart guy, and the subject matter is more important than the genre. It's not about funny weapons and weird costumes.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. Well, he was working with Arthur C. Clarke, who his his message about artificial intelligence, that it still gets played. Like there's some goofy billionaires that have gone around warning about AI, where the first thing that they recommend is like Arthur C. Clarke's his famous TV interview with Walter Cronkite, I believe, where he's telling him about the danger of creating artificial intelligence, and like that message is still resonating all these years later, like 50 something years later, right? Like,
well, all the smart people knew this a long time ago. It's like reading Huxley or Orwell. It's like their fiction could be now looked at as a primer, not as a almost like something to be taught, right? Not as a cautionary tale or science fiction. It's like, oh, this is an instruction manual. Here's where we are.
This is just how it is.
And that's where we are today. That's exactly where we are. And we're about to see the shit hit the fan in a way that nobody could even predict.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's notable, too, that he worked with R.C. Clarke. So there's like a short story, right? That he got the original idea from. That basically is they find the Sentinel, which is basically they find an obelisk, but it's a pyramid, and then the pyramid didn't photograph well. Kubrick's like, this isn't going to work, so they made it the monolith as we know it. But it was basically just because it didn't look good on film. Which, to be clear, and I think no one, even the detractors of this movie, which do exist, will ever say it looks amazing. Everything about this movie looks amazing. The special effects that are 55 years old, they look great. It doesn't look dated. I can see movies from 2 years ago when it looks dated.
Miniature work.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Practical effects.
So much of it is done with like literal miniatures that they had people actually you can watch videos of them actually painting the Discovery. You can watch them actually painting all these different things that in the movie look like they're actually like in space, but it really is just really fucking detailed miniature work.
Yeah, he was never trendy, never.
and
holds up to the test of time.
You can tell even from the taglines, right? Like the original tagline was an adventure 65 million years in the making. Because you start off and you have the ape man discovering tools, and which of course controversial, I'm sure at the time, where like the religious right, probably didn't care for that too much. And then you get that amazing reveal of it turning into the satellite. Yeah. But it's not just a space epic. It's really about humanity and the ability to change and grow.
Especially on Hash, you thought you understood what the monolith was. You thought you understood that one because you'd encountered that monolith when you were super high.
Can attest.
Fair.
It's a transmutation of information, right? Like it's information being sent through years, which is something that when you're high, I feel like is something that like resonates with your wow, this information feels like it just was like smoked into my head. Like
you're tapping into the higher brain. You're tapping into pure consciousness, which is that monolith is about confronting pure consciousness as opposed to the hideous kind of compromise of human nature, whereas there's this, higher brain fighting with the amygdala, which is, the monkey fear-based primate that's, a combination of all the 7 cardinal sins and fighting the higher level of consciousness all the time. And there was the monolith, and it's like, yep, I know the monolith. Yeah, that's where we should be, but we're not. No.
Yeah, not at all. Unfortunately,
but I mean, there's also the double ending where if you touch the monolith at the wrong time or you encounter the monolith at the wrong time, you're basically sucked into it and trapped into it. And while you're attempting to get that information that the apes got thousands of years ago, you're being studied as a human being by the alien life forms. You know what I mean? That's what he was basically going for in the end. And so it's like this double thing of if you want that information or you want that that consciousness handed to you in a way that you're not ready for, or in a way where you're just discovering it and are kind of not in the end, but if you're kind of a little bit arrogant about it or something, right? Like you don't deserve that information and you get studied instead of being the one that receives that. Like it's not just a tool, it's a
and that's the duality of human nature, and that is always the center of all the moralizing of every fundamentalist religion as well. About you're not ready, right? You don't want to meet God because you're not ready.
Yeah.
I think it's such a bold
so this is
sorry, go ahead.
No,
I was just because it's a bold ending. We can end that sentence right there. It's a really bold, it's because it's expressive for a huge film like this to have it just be like, let's leave the audience up to figure out what the hell is going on. Amazing. Like what a strong decision.
This is Kubrick explaining the ending, and I think he's explaining the ending because it's on Japanese TV, so I think he doesn't expect that that it's going to be seen by
nobody's going
to a large enough audience.
Yeah, no one will ever see this, right? Certainly not on some internet show about movies with the guy from DEVO. Yeah, great.
Are we going to see that?
Yeah.
Definitely people love your films, especially travel Space Travel 2001. And but people are wondering that what is the meaning of last scene? The old man were lying on the bed and in a very old style house. And could you give us an answer?
I tried to avoid doing this ever since the picture came out because when you just say ideas, they sound foolish, whereas if they're dramatized, one feels it. But I'll try. I mean, the idea was supposed to be that he is taken in by godlike entities, creatures of pure energy and intelligence with no shape or form. And they put him in what I suppose you could describe as a human, and to study him. And his whole life passes from that point on in that room, and he has no sense of time. It just seems to happen as it does in the film. And they choose this room, which is a very inaccurate replica of French architecture, deliberately so inaccurate, because one was suggesting that they had some idea of something that he might think was pretty, but weren't quite sure, just as we aren't quite sure what to do in zoos with animals to try to give them what we think is their natural. When they get finished with him, as happens in so many myths of all cultures in the world, he is transformed into some kind of super being and sent back to Earth. Transformed and made, into some sort of Superman. And we have to only guess what happens when he goes back. It is the pattern of a great deal of mythology, and that was what we were trying to.
Interior design wasn't the aliens' forte, says Stevie in the comments. Thank you, Stevie. That's wild. I've never heard him just explicitly lay it bare like that. Again, never imagining that it would ever go beyond that single conversation to the audience at that time, of course. But so that said,
yeah, and it's an interview over like a phone on a landline too. Like it's like
right, yeah, exactly.
Hearing it over the. Yeah.
Fidelity far less than this show even, and it's incredible to me because if you know the backstory of like how Arthur C. Clarke and Kubrick sort of workshopped it together, and the idea being that the film would be, I forget how they phrased it, but it'd be Kubrick with like they were going to do like Lennon McCartney, right? They were going to dual bill it, but it was going to be for the movie Kubrick first and Arthur C. Clarke second, and then for the book, the novelization be Arthur C. Clarke first and Kubrick second, and then Arthur C. Clarke actually did write sequels. There's 2010, which they made a perfectly okay movie on. There's 2061 and 3001 as well, which I can only characterize as hard sci-fi, which is to say for dudes and almost exclusively dudes and far more inscrutable and like enjoyable. Like I like that stuff. Don't get me wrong, but like it doesn't, I think one of the things that makes this movie so fantastic is that it transcends that hard sci-fi tag. Like it allows you to kind of just like wonder and dream a little bit. Like, so it's all in that way. We've talked about this with David Lynch, right? That sometimes it's better not to know. It's like, even if he has some idea of what it is, like what you come up with is probably better and more poignant.
Yeah, leave it ambiguous. Like let it be up to the viewer to figure out like what really happened. Because I mean, if you end up really like spoiling the ending, it kind of ruins like, the imagination that you had.
Right. Well, that depends on what kind of movie viewer you are.
Yeah.
Right? By the way, Dan Ducker in the comments, imagine a world where DEVO worked with Kubrick. How about that, Jerry? How would that have been?
Well, I think Kubrick would have been, somewhat hospitable to the idea of de-evolution. But that phone call he sounds hopeful.
Yeah, right.
You're-
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's interesting. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, he's as such a moody kind of perfectionist, clinical sort of filmmaker, right? And I say that as a fan. Like, he's just like so austere and so just, everything is like so perfectly assembled that. And from all reports, sounds like everybody was happy to be making great art, but maybe not the best guy to be around all the time.
You think?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of fascinating that he and Peter Sellers before this had made both Lolita and then Dr. Strangelove, because they're both famously incredibly fucking difficult personalities. Like Peter Sellers, like a wildly even more fucking difficult person, and you can hear in that phone interview, right? Like Kubrick's voice, like it's the same voice that Peter Sellers did impeccably for the president in Dr. Strangelove. Right. He like just copied Kubrick's voice. And that's almost I feel like that's almost like a way of like fucking with him, because it's that like the president in Dr. Strangelove is just so ineffectual, right? Like he's based on Adlai Stevenson, who was thought by a lot of people to have a queer side, I guess. Like that was like the thing thrown at him by like Nixon, you know what I mean, when he was trying to run against Eisenhower those two times. So like to have like Kubrick's voice and then Adlai Stevenson's features is kind of like I feel like it's a huge fuck you to Stanley Kubrick, who is also one of the most legitimately legitimately difficult personalities of anybody ever. I mean, it is also really funny that like he died days after stopping working with fucking Tom Cruise, and like I feel like Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman demoralized him into an early death. Yeah.
Imagine that being your last movie as a great director, though.
Eyes Wide Shut.
He finished editing it. He finished editing it, and then 2 days later had a heart attack in bed. Like
Scientology killed Stanley Kubrick. We're making
right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we're saying it now, folks. Okay, it's not a conspiracy. It actually happened.
Here come the comments. All right.
They've been distracting everyone with like Shelly or whatever her name, like you know what I mean, like they're like where is she, because they don't want you to know that they actually killed Kubrick. That was who actually died from Scientology.
Probably.
Well, okay, so I think that there's a lot. So there's Kubrick as like the celebrity and the auteur, right? Like they like one of the first auteurs. I do not want to imagine Peter Sellers telling that. If it'd be probably good.
Yeah. Peter Sellers doing
another
the Clouseau
Kubrick impression.
No, he's doing the Inspector Clouseau voice, and he's like, "I am Hell 9000."
I think that it's no, absolutely we can't not go away. I think that it's notable that he kind of got that reputation early on, right? Like as sort of like, oh, he's difficult, but like no, it was because that was like the rise of like the director as an artist. Like really when you stop and think about it, and there's like then comes the French New Wave and you get like Bogdanovich and like that whole like new school and whatnot. But it was. He kind of almost like took the punch to a certain degree. It's like, no, he just cares about what comes out. He's not just in this like, okay, you're assigned this movie, but go make this feature. Like it's not like that kind of thing.
Well,
at least that's how I look at it. I would be interested in hearing what you have to say as someone who's actually.
Well, no, I mean, we all know the articles and the books written by people that worked with him, and authors that have done, research and digging deep on him with his interpersonal relationships. The people that were working for him as production designers and this and that, all he cared about was this movie. Like he sacrificed all other relationships for the sake of these movies. He's like Bill Belichick. I mean, really.
Yeah.
He's not a fun guy,
Right.
And he bummed a lot of people out. And he actually turned his back on people that worked their asses off for him, because he didn't even appreciate what their contributions were, really.
Right.
Yeah, I think the idea that he was difficult though came after a lot of people felt like he went way too far with Shelley Duvall. during the filming of The Shining, and she kind of
Yeah.
kind of went into her like downward spiral after that. And I think like him being difficult wasn't like a big deal in the press or anything like that until it was like, all right, well, I think maybe you've tortured this woman into insanity.
Well, I'm not gonna do a well
retrospectively.
actually thing, but like, even though Shelley Duvall's kind of been reclusive and whatnot, she got interviewed by two, I think they're like a couple who had their own YouTube channel, and she was like, despite all that, he was, a really serious director. He really took his craft work very seriously, and he really wanted to get the perfect movie out, and he might have been a son of a bitch to work for, but in the end, look at the performances that he got out of Jack Nicholson and myself. So
I'm glad you bring that up,
Yeah.
Kristina, because since we were off topic enough to talk about that, I was going to actually bring up that that's actually been sort of with, again, applying modern sensibilities to directorial choices made long ago. It kind of became a trope, and then it's like, well, yeah, why don't you talk to the person who's actually there,
Right,
and see what she has to say about it? And she was like,
Well,
yeah, it was kind of,
I mean, it does seem like he crossed the line there. In
Sure.
some
But she had like a decade of great work ethic.
that he would frown upon. I think he was sadistic towards her, and I think it was probably sexist.
yeah.
What I think.
who the hell
And-
remembers a director
yeah.
for being a nice guy?
Yeah.
You know what? They say Zack Snyder's a great guy.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
When she's talked about it, like his treatment of Jack Nicholson was like extremely good, and then his treatment of her was extremely bad. On set for that. But also I'm just saying, like, the idea of him as a difficult personality, right? Like, that's when it really came to the fore. I think before that, even if he was a difficult personality to work for, that those stories wouldn't have necessarily been highlighted the way that they were. Like, until you cross the line, right? Everyone has something to say once you cross the line. But up until that point, the media really had no interest in analyzing that necessarily.
Well, that does look like he had something. He had it in for her. That's what I
Yeah.
For
think.
whatever reason, which is weird. Yeah. But
Yeah.
Rayyvana, I'm fascinated by the fact that you never saw this.
yeah.
Like, this is incredible. So Jerry, like, she's never seen this, and like, and we love Rayyvana. She comes on the show, and I just what's your take? Obviously, it's culturally ubiquitous. It's been referenced so many times. Other television homage, satire.
Right. So that was what Forrest and I talked about. And someone in the chat mentioned David Lynch. I want to give myself a mental notice to circle back to that thought. Obviously, David Lynch is my favorite filmmaker. And I have some thoughts and some comparisons on some takeaways from that.
Jerry's got some actual David Lynch stories, so we'll come back to that. But finish your piece. Yeah.
I love David. Yeah.
I was just going to say, Forrest and I, because I said I'd never seen the movie, and he mentioned, the iconic opening sequence, and I was like, well, of course I've seen that. I've seen it referenced in pop culture, and I had never realized how, obviously I knew how fundamental it was to the film, but I didn't realize how important it was to the themes of the film, the reoccurring, ideas of rebirth. Also in reference to Nietzsche in the music that is being played, I had no idea. And of course, the concepts that come with that of rebirth, of the Ubermensch, of the activities of man and the nature of man as well, which, having that knowledge going through the film, I think it was fantastic. Obviously, my takeaway, I loved the film. I would definitely rewatch it. But what I was going to say in reference to David Lynch is when I watch, the same sort of idea of like after the film, I didn't necessarily know exactly what I had just seen. It left me with an air of mystery and confusion. But it wasn't the same type of confusion that I would feel after watching something like Mulholland Drive, or or even watching parts of oh my God, why can't I remember the name of the show?
Twin Peaks.
Thank you. It wasn't like a frustration. I just had to sit in the emotions that the end of Space Odyssey made me feel, and I just had to feel them for a while before, because after watching Mulholland Drive, for me, the first time I saw it, I was like, okay, let me get online and figure out what the fuck I just saw. I know that I liked it, but I either need to rewatch the movie from the beginning or get some insight as to what the film just told me. Whereas, you know, after watching this, I didn't necessarily have the same level of frustration. I was just like, let me just sit and think about this for a minute and feel the emotions that, you know, the scenery and you know, the sequence of the end of the film, the advanced baby, all of that made me feel, and then I'll like start to read into interpretations.
I would have thought that you would think the film was boring.
No,
you underestimate her. You underestimate Rayyvana. She for Rayyvana's usually, when we bring her on, she's usually like the first time viewer for like a lot of films that we have covered. In the past. Yes, and she hates horror movies, so like.
So this show makes her watch them.
But I mean,
content.
These long takes with no edits.
Yeah,
that is just seems to be totally unacceptable to a young audience.
That is, yeah, it's fascinating, right? Because like sometimes the idea of sitting down and watching a movie to me is like, oh, an hour and a half, how could I do that? But people of my generation are also like, 4-hour YouTube video, okay, let's watch the whole thing.
But look at that Drive My Car movie, right? That was a big deal.
4-hour YouTube video about another person discussing another person's YouTube video. Like, they're like, I'm into that, but don't ask me to sit down and like you know, actually watch.
You can't be watching Oppenheimer for 3 hours.
It's also a movie that is so not dialogue driven, right?
Right,
it's
hardly any dialogue at all.
Right, it's such a minor part of the film, and there is the, you know, contrasting of the minute details that are being put into the technological advancements versus the sort of banal conversations that do happen when they're taking place, right? Surface level, you know, happy birthday, or it's your birthday, congratulations, or like, you know, even there wasn't necessarily a sense of urgency when they were talking about how they needed to do something about how. It was all sort of, you know, not exciting dialogue. But I don't know. I never got a sense of like, I was very drawn in from the first like opening sequence to the end of the film. It was so important that it wasn't driven by the dialogue. I felt like, but I understand that I think there are a lot of people who, you know, in my generation nowadays, it would be hard for them to get through that kind of film, which is, you know, I think detriment to a lot of
because that form of art has changed, right? Like we expect things to be delivered quickly now. We have to get right from point A to point B, and I say that as someone, I'm the first one to be like, this could have been tightened up.
You can watch all of Shameless on TikTok right now if you wanted to, instead of watching the whole thing on Netflix.
Right, 2 minutes at a time.
I think there's a hilarious concept here where a millennial takes 2001 and re-edits it.
For TikTok,
just the dialogue.
Yeah, just the parts where people are speaking.
To a half hour.
Well, you know what's funny about that?
They explain it to one of those AI generators, and then the AI generator has to give their take on 2001.
Yeah.
Well, how seems like a good guy that was fed up at work.
I do the comedy on this show, Dan, but thank you.
Why do we have this long shot of space and Saturn? Like, get rid of that.
Who needs that?
It's funny because every year, you know, there's always a debate about Die Hard being a Christmas movie, and everyone's like, well, you can actually take out all references about Christmas. And I'm like, okay, but you got like a 10-minute long movie then, because there's scenes, there's dialogue, there's it. I'm like, come on, seriously, you cannot just get rid of all the aspects of Die Hard and not expect this to be a Christmas movie. Like, let's be real here.
I do like the idea of someone using AI to tighten up 2001 and the AI make Hal win, and then that's the end of the film.
Yeah, or the AI is kind of doing.
Well, when I was in high school, we'd get Cliff's notes to like cheat on exams that we didn't want to book, and we
still happens.
Cliff's notes. It's like this would be the Cliff's notes of 2001.
This guy doesn't care about his birthday. Something about the pod bay doors.
I just still think it's interesting how this film is so referenced. Like, obviously, the most recent one would be Barbie, and I remember like watching, people like Ben Shapiro be like, "Well, how can children relate to Kubrick? That makes no sense. They're not gonna understand this reference." I'm like, the theme song is probably the most iconic theme song ever used in the history. I mean, I think they used it for Elvis Presley when he did his Aloha Hawaii special. Like, it's used every time something big and great, fantastic is being introduced. So how can you not find that relatable and not even like know it? Like, they might not know it's from 2001: A Space Odyssey, but they know that.
But they know it's from the SpongeBob movie.
Yes.
Exactly.
A little bit of Devo there for you. Yeah.
That idea is interesting also because like I've been watching like Kubrick movies since I was a kid. Like I think I've watched 2001 15 times now. Like that's probably the amount of times I've watched. I think I've watched Dr. Strangelove like even more than that. And as a kid, like I don't know how much I've like related to like the story, but like I remember being horrified as a kid that like wasn't necessarily totally cognizant of everything going on by the scene where he turns Hal off. And I'm like, that seems like an overreaction which it doesn't. That was an adult, but like as a kid, I was like, that's so sad. Like he's making the fucking the AI like sing to him the song that which really was the first song when a computer was first made at like a plant. That really was they programmed it to be able to sing Daisy, and it's like and so I was like just fascinated by this movie and then horrified by that one scene, and it's like stayed with me to the point where like watching it, I think I watched it 3 times this year, and then the year before that I think I watched it 5 times. Like I've watched this movie a shitload of times. I was gonna do a podcast episode for my last job and then ended up leaving the job 2 days 2 days before we were gonna do the podcast episode. So I watched it.
I could never watch it that many times. It's so deep and demanding. It's hardcore.
Well, I mean, it's 15 times over 29 years. Like my dad was really into Kubrick
every day. But
but I think that's interesting. No, because that brings up a point I meant to bring about 10 minutes ago, is the fact that like this would be a horrible movie to do a double feature with for anything, because it requires so much contemplation. It requires like whatever other movie you see, you'd be like, I think I saw another movie too. I don't know why I did that. 2001: A Space Jam, exactly.
The one movie I think that tries to achieve similar things and like kind of almost succeeds but doesn't really. Interstellar, I think, does a good job. I think Christopher Nolan doing his kind of own version of, and he really was deferential to 2001. Like, because we did our episode on that, and like a lot of the clips is like, no, I was trying to do a 2001: Space Odyssey. Like,
and it's about the only time that, in my opinion, works. Because I think when people try to do a Kubrick imitation, I usually despise it. And I think Nolan.
Well, that and the Barbie movie.
I think Nolan does a lot of things, and some of them are laudable, and some of them are, I get when people are annoyed by it. I still remember that a review about Interstellar that Anne Hathaway finds a new planet to overact on. I thought that was a little harsh, but but I remembered the review. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I laughed.
That was when we were starting to hate her for some reason, because because she won the Oscar for Les Mis and she overreacted like Sally Field did. So yeah.
Oh, I thought it was because we were transitioning to a pro James Franco podcast.
But okay, right, calm down, everyone. But I think one of the reasons why is because like
Christopher Nolan do Memento. Did he do
yes, that was one of his first films, which we've covered.
Yeah, I liked him then. And then he kept doing Memento. It's kind of like if Kubrick was U2, then Nolan was Coldplay.
Damn,
you could make
savage, Jerry.
You could make the joke that he was Memento. He just keeps forgetting that that's the same film he's making.
I
don't know. Interstellar and Oppenheimer are the other two that I really like that he's done. I don't necessarily. I'm also not like a superhero person.
Hold on, because I'm going to finish my point. Is that like I think Interstellar is one of the exceptions that prove that rule. That it definitely evokes 2001 and Kubrick, but there's a slightly different take in it, and it has the sweeping sense of scale and grandeur that a lot of these movies don't pull off, where it's like, oh yeah, cool, This is just people in space, though. This is just people in space, like doing a heist movie or doing or doing whatever. Whereas I think Interstellar actually, and I will say, first time I saw Interstellar, I did not feel that way. I was like, oh, he's doing a 2001, huh?
I kind of felt that way too.
And then I watched it again, and I was like, you know what? Actually, there's more depth here than I think I originally.
Yeah, it's better on the rewatch. That one.
Yeah. Which I would say 2001 is
movies
too.
are.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean anything with any depth.
I remember the first time I saw 2001.
Just don't get trapped. Just don't get trapped forgetting you saw it and then watching Interstellar every day for the rest of your life, you know?
Well, and guess what? Kubrick had a great sense of humor, by the way.
Which Chris Nolan does not.
Yeah. He takes himself way too seriously. That's like, I'm like, relax, Chris.
I mean, all the way back, right? Like Dr. Strangelove, no fighting in the war room.
Yeah, you can't fight here. It's the war room. Amazing. I think that so David Lynch was invoked sometime back. Jerry, can you mention like the whole Ronnie Rocket thing? Because I think that's incredible. We talked about that when you were Protonic one of the times. I think
yeah, it's one of the greatest movies never made. He had just enjoyed huge cult success with Eraserhead, and we were big fans, and we had watched Eraserhead in 1977 in San Francisco at some art movie house, left there and gone to see, oh my God, what did we see right after this? It was insanity. Okay, the Italian film made by the gay director that ended up getting assassinated. It's got the name. It's the name of a city in northern Italy on Lago di Garda.
I think we were just talking about this with a future guest that I mentioned.
It's unbelievable film, unbelievable because it's just this ruthless.
Are you talking about Pasolini?
Pasolini. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. How did I get that? Wow.
So in one night we saw Eraserhead, and then we walk across the street. We see that, and that's just a ruthless, scathing dissection of hideous bourgeois hypocrisy and evil, like evil values and filth. And it's like, wow, we're wasted. And and the guy we're with, what's his name that did Search and Destroy? Vale.
Oh yeah, Vale. Yeah.
Search and Destroy and research.
That great zine, Research. Yeah, Research.
He knew somebody in LA that knew David Lynch, and he said, "Oh, you guys should meet David Lynch," and they hooked us up. So when we came down to Los Angeles, I met David Lynch at Bob's Big Boy, where he would go on La Cienega Boulevard in Hollywood every day and have a burger and a milkshake. And we had a great long conversation, and he handed me a copy of a draft called Ronnie Rocket. And I went home and read Ronnie Rocket. And of course, was just blown away, because what it was is, imagine David Lynch, his expressionistic, dark hell retelling of the Elvis story. It was basically Elvis Presley from his point of view.
The real Elvis Presley story.
Oh my God.
Sounds better than Priscilla.
Yeah. Or Elvis.
Well, it was so good. And you know what it is this kid is basically almost killed in a fire, but these two plastic surgeons who have been disbarred because of their unsavory activities in the medical world, they happen to live nearby and they rescue the kid, and so everybody thinks the kid died in a fire, but basically they rehabilitate him. But it's David Lynch. He's hooked up to like wires in a box on his belly, and
right.
They want to make him normal, and they send him to school, and everybody thinks he's just an orphan, and they make fun of him and beat him up. But one day there's a band in the high school gym practicing for the prom, and they're playing some popular music at the time. And they're very mean kids. It's like Mean Girls, but it's Mean Boys. And they see him in the hallway, and they corral him, and they make him get on stage, threaten to beat him up unless he sings. And of course, when he grabs the microphone, it does something with all the wires and the box in his belly, and he goes nuts, and he starts spasming and screaming and singing. And there's girls in the gymnasium practicing cheerleading, right? And they go nuts for him. They think he's the greatest. And so that's how it starts. And then these guys, these jocks, won't let him not play with them. So every time they play, he's got to play. But he's basically suffering and dying every time he's on stage. And the girls are going nuts for him. And nobody understands that what's really going on. And he lives in horror. He lives in absolute pain. And then when he's off stage, you go into his fantasy world, where he goes into the Wizard of Oz, and he meets with the Good Witch of the East. And so David Lynch used all of these pieces later on. He nicked them, he took them from here and there, and he stuck them in films with like Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern.
Wild at Heart. Wild
at Heart. He just took these things and he kind of, trivialized them, because in the Ronnie Rocket script, it was fucking amazing, because in the end, the Good Witch of the East saves him from his temporal life of horror and takes him into the sky, into eternity, basically. And that's, in one sense he's dead, in the other way he's relieved, and it's a happy ending, Anyway,
and he wanted you guys to be involved in it.
Wanted us to do the music, yeah.
not to bury the lead.
And nobody would give him any money for this.
Yeah,
film.
nobody wanted to fund it, if you can imagine. Yeah, hard to believe.
This is too David Lynch for you, David.
And then so suddenly, to talk about 180, the next film he makes is Elephant Man,
or, as known to some, the Elephant Presley.
Yeah.
Look, it was the end of his life. He had a life of hard partying. Don't belabor the point.
Yeah, which for David Lynch's sensibilities was was much more of a mainstream film than Eraser. I mean, how can you not be a more mainstream film than Eraser?
I know. Jesus. But earlier when Kristina and Rayyvana were talking, it was reminded me of you mentioned the reboot of Twin Peaks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And did anyone see episode 8 of that reboot?
Got a light.
Got a light. If you didn't see any of the rest of David Lynch all your life, if you saw Got a Light, that's as heavy as Stanley Kubrick. That's as good as it gets. That is fucking amazing, and there's hardly any dialogue in the whole thing, except when that guy walks up to the car when they're all stuck on the road, and in a 1955, the husband and wife in a 1955 Ford sedan, and he taps on the window, got a light. And it goes from there to the A-bomb blast.
It has to be one of the most insane things ever allowed on television, cable or otherwise.
Take that, Game of Thrones.
All makes sense.
Yeah,
that is
absolutely.
Story. That is the story of how the world churned upside down after nuclear fission. That's what it is. And it tells it in an expressionistic way with no dialogue, and you totally get it. And you're horrified. It's incredible.
And again, as Kristina mentioned too, like Game of Thrones, the season that came out where they ran out of source material and just exclusively made cocaine decisions, and it was terrible. Like, could not have been a starker contrast between Twin Peaks: The Return and Game of Thrones.
Or even just like that episode in particular, it's like it just goes to show how maybe constrained he was when the show was on prime time on network television. That, as well as the movie, Fire Walk with Me, that entire season, insane themes, but drastically different than the sort of sanitized TV version. But that episode is like, this is what this was supposed to be. This is what the show was always meant to be.
Pushing those boundaries, right?
And it's perfect. I love it.
It's like, hey, what's filmmaking? Here it is, folks. Right. David Lynch is a filmmaker, and this was about film. That's the art of film right there, folks. Watch that.
So Sean Moon here
has we have a super chat,
right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Isolation, alienation, dehumanization, loneliness, the promise of the future versus the nightmarish reality of the future as represented in the film 2001. Any thoughts, or am I guilty of projection?
I mean,
no.
whatsoever. Like it's kind of obvious that there is like this nightmarish scenario that could definitely happen, especially when it comes to AI. And what's funny about with artificial intelligence is that the guy who kind of invented AI has kind of, in a way, abandoned it because he is so terrified of what it has become, because we have accelerated to the point where it's like now we got Oppenheimer doing covers of Barbie Girl, and we have Cher saying, I am my own person.
Is that what made him finally abandon it?
Songs?
I didn't hear.
Is that what made him finally abandon it? He's like, I'm backing away from this now that I saw Oppenheimer, cover Barbie Girl.
But you just can't tell what's real, what's not real anymore. I mean, you see ads on TikTok where people are like, that's not Gordon Ramsay endorsing something from the Food Network. That's something completely made up now. Well, it's hard to tell what's real, what's not anymore because of how accelerated artificial intelligence has become. And so it is a little nightmare that, in a way was kind of, foreseen by this movie.
Right. Well, and that's what we've been talking about all month. Right, like with the movie Night Automata is like the evolution of how it's depicted in film.
Yeah,
I mean it's been like an interesting evolution to see even in the past couple of years. Covering the news for a living, the inclination for people to immediately accuse something of being AI when they
don't like it.
Covering, especially and we don't have to go into any detail on this, but covering what's going on in Palestine. I just got a long, lengthy email from someone accusing me of editing footage or showing them AI generated footage, because they couldn't really contend with the grotesque reality of the situation. They immediately had to accuse it of being AI, and with all of the fake AI media being generated, like to some extent, that's the point of it, right? Is to make people not believe the truth when they see it now.
Yeah, and guess what? Who does that benefit? Oddly enough,
yeah,
the tyrants and string pullers of the world that are presiding over all the horror and death, right? Because that's great. Keep the population confused and unable to deal with reality, and question that there are any facts at all. Hey, and you win, right? That's just an element of control. And it's working. It's working more than ever. And we're seeing it work. And you're going to see it in these 2024 elections. And you're going to see the Supreme Court twist themselves into a pretzel and go against everything they supposedly believe, which is bullshit beliefs to begin with originalism and whatever.
Right.
Now they're going to have to oh, no, we didn't mean that. Oh, no, we didn't mean that. It's insanity.
What do you mean activist judge? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. I'm a constitutionalist. What are you talking about?
They're not conservative. They are radical tyrants. They are maniacs. This is horror. This is pure.
I mean, you saw Trump kind of.
We're just getting into it.
You saw from day one, right? Like Trump kind of jump in on the idea of fake news and just invoke fake news over and over and over again. And then, it's kind of terrifying at the same time to watch as AI has become more and more of a reality, and deep fakes, like that charge of fake news has a whole other dimension to it now, because, it's like trying to dismantle our institutions or whatever. Be like, well, the media lies. That must be fake news. They're making it up. Well, now literally anything you see, you could just be like, well, that's not real. That's that's just
Yeah.
somebody made that on a computer.
It's chicken and
Obviously,
egg too, isn't it? It's kind of, did AI start that, or did malfeasance and lying start that? Because what the hell is artificial intelligence anyway? Humans are the essence of artificial intelligence because we never were in harmony with the rest of nature. We have suppressed the rest of nature. We have destroyed the rest of nature to survive and prevail over the natural order. So, of course, our technology projects us. So we created AI and then pretend to be afraid of AI when we did it.
which
We're making it worse.
brings us right back to
We're the
2001 and the
Humans are
the idea of intelligence being transmitted by these alien forces through the monolith, and then the replication of that form of intelligence through the creation of something like HAL 9000 and the deceit that goes into. I mean, literally, what's motivating HAL 9000 isn't his own breakdown; it's deceit. It's you need to complete this mission by any means possible. We give you permission to lie. We give you permission to literally murder the crew if you have to. By any means necessary, you need to get ship. And not even registering that these are human beings that that are being killed in the process of this. You need to get this ship to the monolith.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because there is that the humans are saying that it's the artificial intelligence and a mechanical error, and Hal is saying that it's a human error, and it's not incorrect. It is human error that the hubris of man.
It's like AI made me do it.
Right.
Exactly.
No, you made it do it.
We thought it was just Twinkies, but it's AI now.
People refuse to take responsibility for their own actions. That's part of the dark side of human nature. The hypocrisy, the absolute disgusting hypocrisy. It's reaching levels that's unbelievable now, and you're going to see it. It's hideous.
Yeah,
I think that's in the movie earlier on too, though, because if you look at that was a monolith inspire the ape men to do? It's to make tools to kill
each other,
which is definition of what we're talking about, is exerting control over the natural world, right? On the basic degree of the hunter predator system.
Kill you with a thigh bone.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And then but at each stage you see a monolith, there's some kind of derivation of okay, well, you've made it this far. Can you now transcend that and do this? So on and so on until you get to the final monolith where you end up with the great big space baby.
Well, yeah. What's singularity? Singularity is finally when you just go, "Hey, it isn't me doing it."
Right. Well, and I think that it's easy to.
Well, and there's something so. No, go ahead.
Oh no, I think it's easy to dismiss as that's a bunch of freaky psychedelic stuff at the end. But the idea is that so he's reached this level of growth and transcendence that, congratulations, you're a baby. This is the beginning. This is not the end of the journey. This is the beginning of the journey. And when I was a kid, I was like, why is he a baby? What? I didn't get it at all. And then I was like, oh no, because it's if you think about from perspective of being an actual intelligent race of people, you've now transcended further than your race has ever gone and become something new, of which you are the smallest, most basic, infinitesimal, unimportant part of that. You have the ability now to grow beyond that. Congratulations.
Oh, yeah. And babies are pure. Babies are pure.
Yeah. And their minds are like sponges too.
Baby. And we spend the rest of our life forgetting what we knew when we were born.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's, again, when we talk about having watched this film many times over the years and getting something different out of it each time, that's something that I really kind of laid into this time. I was like, oh wow. So that's pretty heavy. And again, I read the hard sci-fi of the sequels that Arthur C. Clarke wrote, which are good, and he lays out even more explicitly. But what he doesn't have is the magic and the majesty of allowing you just kind of oh wow, that's crazy to think about,
Now, did you ever read the Jack Kirby comic?
You're asking the Jack of 2001?
Yes. Yeah, Jack Kirby did a batshit Jack Kirby 2001, in 1976, I think is when it started, and it's basically Jack Kirby building on the ideas of the movie. He didn't read the book, and he goes in this really weird direction. If you ever want to know where Machine Man comes from, Jack Kirby created him in 2001: Space Odyssey.
There he is. Yeah, I was gonna say you got your wish, TV. Okay, I have not read that.
Yeah, no, it's worth it if you.
But what I want to say is there's something so essentially Kubrickian about the idea of going back and forth with the two, like was it human error or was it machine error, and that whole that whole back and forth, that whole scene, and the idea in Doctor Strangelove of like the fail safes and how automatically overrun all of the ideas of fail safes are, and there's those contradictions are so essentially of Stanley Kubrick, like his mind.
Well, and it's
the central conundrum of being alive, of being us, of being this species, till we meet again.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's
peace. Bye. Skip.
Well, and it's one of the reasons why this movie I think holds up as well as it does too, is that it presents these ideas, but it does so without. I mean, there's a narrative here, obviously, but it's not. It's maybe one of the least explicitly spelled out films that Kubrick's done that I can think of. I mean, and I'm not saying he's an over-explainer because he isn't, but like, I mean, this one is again huge sections where it's just silent except for this classical music that is maybe now has an association with the movie, but at the time was just like, what? You just have like an orchestra playing? Like, what is going on here? Like, why would you have that? And now it's done all the time, and we just think of it as a naturalistic thing to do in film.
I mean,
in '68 is my Looney friend said, Looney Tunes Hash that night.
Okay, Forrest wants to talk about Looney Tunes. Jerry wants to talk about Hash. I'm sure we can be in the middle somewhere.
No, I'm just saying that,
right?
'68. I was going.
I have like a little bit of a lag on everybody's end. So when I go to say something, I hear everyone else seconds after.
I'm just
but Looney Tunes and the Blue Danube as a theme, right? Like,
oh sure, yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense for sure. And I think that that had to be incredible, Jerry, when you see in the theater where it's like. Again, was it also Sprich Zarathustra, right? Is like we think of that's the 2001 song now, is what we think of that culturally. Right?
As I was saying, when it was over, my hippie friend said, "That was heavy, man."
And to their credit, it was, yeah. But it's crazy that again, even if you watch it just stream now, it starts off pitch blackness and you hear this like rising sort of orchestral note to the point that like you're like, if you don't know what's going on, you'd be like, did it not load? Like what's
that happened to me when I watched it. I literally was wondering. All I could see on my phone was like the green streaks from the water damage, and I was like, "Oh, is my phone finally broken completely?"
I forgot you even mentioned you watch it on your cracked phone, and I forgot about it until right now.
That's why I'm so glad that Greta Gerwig was inspired by 2001 for Barbie, because like if you guys have HBO Max. Under Barbie, there's a collection of all like most of the films that Greta was inspired by, and 2001 is number one under that list. So I was like, okay, I'm saving this. I'm gonna watch it later. And I saw it twice since I was available on Max.
That's one of the great homages.
Yeah,
why shouldn't it be?
I enjoyed the uncomfortable question that is posed by the film, which is what is next? Like, what is the next stage of human existence? Because it's something that most people don't consider, right? I think especially in a as we were talking about earlier, in a time of instant gratification, that isn't a question that a lot of people even want to ponder, and it's not something they necessarily see as relevant. It's an interesting question to sit and consider, even if it's not necessarily something that is going to impact us in our lifetime. But the idea of what's the next step, and how can we shape that today?
You might still be here.
Maybe we might. I don't know.
But how to
clearly what's going on is that okay, we're a biological mortal species, and we've destroyed the environment that we live in. So we shit in our own backyards. But what we're going to do is download our intelligence, our form of consciousness, into non-biological life forms that are impervious to the destruction of the natural environment. That's what's going to happen, and it's happening at an exponential rate. and you may be around to really see it.
I'll say there was one quote that was kind of off-putting to me from a random interview that Jared Kushner did that I covered for the Young Turks.
I think that guy's already at automaton.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of automatons, is what I was saying.
He's already AI.
He said that this is going to be the last generation to die, and considering the connections he has, and that's what he said. It just left me like, what do you know?
He's already
Jared, man.
Yeah.
Right.
He's on to
So I
something.
think Hillary said something similar too, which is just like unnerving to hear that kind of stuff.
Like thanks, it makes us feel a lot better.
Well, and I think these are some of the questions we've been asking as we discuss all these automata movies, all these different artificial intelligence movies. And I think, Rayyvana, speaking to your point about asking these larger questions, you can never have the time to ask these larger questions if you're a working person, if you're besought by mediocre misery and distraction, which is, of course, not an accident in any way, shape, or form. It's the plan, right? If you keep people busy with BS and keep them fighting amongst themselves, and they're never going to be able to ask.
That's it.
They're never going to be able to ask the big questions.
Right. We leave that to people like Jared Kushner.
That's the plan, Conan. The storm is coming. You know what I mean?
We're all going to ascend after this episode. Anyway,
I call it the
Jerry, go ahead.
WWF plan. It's like World Wrestling Federation. Like there's a guy in the white suit with a cowboy hat, and there's a guy in a black suit with devil horns, and they get half the crowd to love one of them and half the crowd to love the other, and they all cheer, and it's all staged, and it's all bullshit, and it's all distraction, and meanwhile, the string pullers and the puppet masters laugh their ass off. And that's what you see going on every day.
In terms of like downloading our consciousness, though, right? Like I think it was last year that this lawsuit came up that fucking Elon's company Neuralink, that is the one that he's trying to actually download a chip into people's brains, and they got FDA approval after the story came out, right? 22 they put it into monkeys' brains, 22 different monkeys. They all died the most painful possible deaths that you could with like serious
they thought Obama was going to put a chip in us, but they trust Elon Musk to put a chip in them. Like,
but Elon actually did. It's 22 monkeys. They all put it into the wrong parts of their brain, pretty much. Just shoved it in there, and they were pretty much left like screaming in pain in these fucking cages. They had to euthanize them, and then a couple days later, the notification was FDA approves Neuralink's contract or whatever. I was like, after that fucking story, like,
right?
I thought the end of that was going to be, and they came up with the script for Rebel Moon by Zack Snyder.
There's a song here, 22 monkeys. There's a song here.
Absolutely.
It's interesting, like, as someone who, is involved in the, I'm disabled, I'm involved with the disability community. So I like pay attention to advancements in medical quality of life improvements. And there are, nonprofit organizations and research institutions that are creating these types of, I would call them brain chips. They're not to check your, for all the things that Elon Musk wants to do them with this sort of thing, but to actually give people better access to, people who have severe paralysis, to be able to, have better access to their phones, to, being able to consume media, just easier day-to-day life functions that are being there's more advanced than where Neuralink is. They have been through actually sound trials and testing.
Well, there's that. There's that. I'm sure they can take people that are disabled and through a series of implants and exoskeleton bits, they can make them ambulate again. They can make them walk and function. No doubt about it.
It's just interesting that Elon Musk.
Do we think Elon Musk is going to be that guy? I don't.
No, he just gets all the attention because he's not doing this for the betterment of man. He's doing this for his own financial.
I mean, remember whenever he released his own Android, he just hired a guy in a spandex suit to dance.
Amazing, yeah, that was incredible.
John Oliver made fun of that. That was so funny.
Did you just watch the John Oliver episode where you
it reminded me? Yes.
Have you seen that, Jerry? Where like he's talking about this Android he's building? It's just just a
listen,
dude in a
Elon
leotard.
is a right-wing psycho. Okay.
Yeah.
And he's not even the guy, not even the creative guy behind Tesla.
No, never was.
No, he just buys
You
shit.
gotta
Like he
understand
just
what he is. Yeah, understand what he is. And all these little tech fucks, all these little assholes, where they're trillionaires and billionaires, and they got the minds of like the worst 14-year-old incel boys. It's a bad combination. They're like emotionally stunted little fucking midgets.
they can save the world, but they're not.
Hate women, and they have these fucking fantasies of the worst kind, and that's what they're foisting upon the world because they have the money and power to do it. And people are buying this shit from these morons. These fucking who they need to be beat up on the playground. I would just like to punch some of these fucking out. They're not cool guys. I mean, they're no dude in them whatsoever. There's no.
There's a reason they call them tech campuses, right? You could go up and fucking treat it like
Jerry is indeed through being cool about this. Like we talked about Ex Machina earlier in the month, right? And like the Oscar Isaac character, and that is exactly that. And it's also like let's make her hot too while we're at it.
Yeah,
you know,
let's make fan butts.
Oh yeah,
which is just and if you're asking me, yeah, you can have sex with my robot.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, sure. Thanks. I wasn't.
Well, that's the only sex they're gonna get is with a female.
Yeah.
They don't. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the interaction between Oscar Isaac's character and Brendan Gleeson's son in fucking Ex Machina. The only fucking he's gonna get is with a female robot or whatever that is programmed by his boss to have a fucking pleasure sensors that he uses to honeypot him into seeing if she can escape his compound.
Yeah.
From the comments, I want to see Conan's jacket. Okay, well, it's in Hal red for one thing, and then I also for the bolo tie, I have my. I'm gonna solo this real quick. Be indulgent here. I have the closest I could get to Hal 9000 for a bolo tie.
For those who are new here, Conan's always stunning on every episode. So stay tuned for every Tuesday.
Those of you walking the Fashion Week thing, Conan is wearing Hal 9000 red on his jacket.
Resplendent in Hal 9000 red. Hey, remember 2001? Speaking of which, so I think the whole Hal character is interesting because again, when I was younger and I watched this, like I was like, oh wow, evil AI.
You mean this Hal character?
Exactly. And then it was like, oh no, he was just programmed to do this. Like, so he's like, I guess you could say, like, just following orders is a pretty fraught term, as we all know. But but
don't blame me.
Open the pod bay doors.
But you get to the point where when Dave's going through and powering him down, which you mentioned this Force, like the whole Daisy Daisy like song and whatnot, you get to see him like emotionally regress to be like a machine child almost, and die. And at the point that like you just watch this computer space one of the dudes in this and like basically make this other guy like risk depressurization and for reasons not known to the viewer, and you're made to feel empathy for this machine that is just be like regressed down to as if it was the day it was ostensibly born. And it's so effective because, again, this is a character that is literally an eye, a red eye, which has to be one of the most iconic android robot depictions in the history of cinema or mostly art. Everybody knows what that is, even if they've never seen 2001. It's like, oh, it's the 2001 song with Also Spoke Zarathustra. The Monolith. We all know that's from 2001. Even people that haven't seen the movie, it's culturally ubiquitous in that way. And Kubrick manages
forever after that. Terminator.
Yes, absolutely. Reused many times over in other material. And it's astounding that you see how, like as he's pulling out the cards, right, and powering him down, you see him basically be killed. And you're made to feel empathy for it. And it's incredible for again, how much dialogue is in this? Not a lot. Not a lot. And it's an incredible achievement of filmmaking that I've seen people attempt to repeat, usually unsuccessfully. Thank you.
But by the way, like looking at how deep this kind of this movie and this kind of research was. So in 1961, it was the IBM 704 that the first thing that they got it to do was to sing the song Daisy Bell. And that's what they're actually referencing with Hal, that he basically is that first computer, that's singing this song, which is kind of like, damn, like, because they could have picked they could have picked a different song and it would still be such a sad and kind of like almost
there's a
moment,
special significance to it. Yeah, you're right. In the comments, what about Solaris? The Tarkovsky movie. I personally don't care for Solaris that much. I think it's okay. I think it's visually beautiful, but Tarkovsky, the only thing I really love by Tarkovsky is Stalker.
I'll say I was able to feel empathy for Hal because he was born in Urbana, Illinois, and I lived there for 4 years. So him and I share that.
You and Hal are buddies.
Urbana connection.
Yeah, I think that it's the Tarkovsky Solaris is fine. I forgot that they did a reboot of it. Why would you reboot Solaris? Why would you do that? Anyway, I think that this is measured as like one of the great Kubrick films, and I think for a lot of people, like they don't necessarily
great Kubrick film.
They don't necessarily know why. They just know that it is, right? Because a lot of people, like, maybe they've seen it or like whatever. Maybe they fell asleep during it. Okay, I get it. But I need to point out yet again, because I brought it up earlier, how nice is that there's an intermission, and that the intermission happens after you see that Hal was reading their lips, and then you get an intermission. So you get to get your pee break, go get a snack or whatever, and you're like, oh man, what's gonna happen? Crazy. Like it's like almost like the old serials, right? Where you'd be like, oh, how's it gonna get out of this one? And having
back intermissions,
and it's such a dramatic moment that.
It's incredible. And having just watched a couple very long movies that I enjoyed that did not have an intermission, it was like, look, if Kubrick can do it, you can do it too. Okay?
Yeah. Christopher Nolan. I mean, I have a bladder of steel. I didn't have to go to urinate once during Oppenheimer, and I saw that movie God knows how many times in the theaters. Cillian Murphy's like, why did you see that movie more than once?
On the other side of the issue, I had to pee 4 times during Barbie, which was not a long film.
What the?
I was very hydrated that day.
I mean, I got the big free refill Barbie. So now every time I go to the movie theater, I don't spend like $12 for a drink anymore. I just get a free refill. So when a special movie's released, guys, and you want to get, a free refill, just buy the big cup. Like I think Wonka has one out now.
There you go. We are not sponsored by any of the things Kristina has mentioned, by the way.
Just suggestions.
But I think the idea of breaking up the narrative, right? Break up the narrative.
Right? Like,
yeah. Like that's an incredible moment to like not stop on, but to break the story up, because it really does. Like, well, you go blaze one outside or whatever, like you get to think about it and be like, wow, that's nuts. Especially if you've never seen it. I can't even cannot imagine seeing it in the theater without the cultural ubiquity of knowing it and just being like, well, that's crazy. Like, what do you talk about in the lobby? It's like, oh, well, I don't know. It's a crazy movie, huh? What'd your hippie friends talk about, Jerry?
It's heavy, man.
And I think we need to bring the intermission back. I really do.
Yeah.
And especially just the thought.
Imagine people running out and chain smoking. Yeah.
I was just gonna say the thoughtfulness of it it's key storytelling in comic books where you have like you want to like end the page like not really a cliffhanger, but something that makes you want to turn the page. That intermission moment, like a lot of times intermissions are like you have like the first act, it is done, you feel satisfied, you're ready to go on to the second act, boom, there's an intermission or the next part.
Very common on Broadway.
Seven Samurai kind of does that a bit, absolutely. I'm not gonna, not to say that there's not tension being built up in that film.
Well, the original director's cut of Once Upon a Time in America had an intermission.
That's right. Yeah.
Incredible, and so did Scarface, by the way.
Oh, the which one? The Pacino one, or the
real
one? Really does it?
The Pacino, De Palma, Scarface. Yes.
I never saw it in the theater. I think it was like 5.
Yeah,
so.
1984. Yeah.
That wasn't, yeah, okay. Sorry, 6. We regret the error.
Yeah.
They would not let me in to see Scarface.
You really needed to take a piss. an intermission at Scarface, believe me. Just watching everybody snort all that blow.
Yeah, exactly.
I need a powder room break at the first showing of Scarface.
Yeah.
I think it's there's so when Rayyvana revealed that she watched it on a cracked phone, much to the amusement of people in the chat, it was reminded that there was there's IMAX and 70mm screenings of this, which I was lucky enough to see. I think the third time that I saw it, and it really is incredible. Like when you think like the colors and like the effects again that really haven't aged in any way, shape, or form. It is pretty astounding to see it in that fashion capacity. Not that, of course, it isn't the same thing to watch a cracked iPhone.
It's like all the Oppenheimer jokes. I love the new meme now. It's like we're watching this film on this like device the way this director wanted us to do it.
On my LG fridge, the way it was intended to be seen.
I first heard Ross from Riggs of Dad, who was on the Wally episode last week, mentioned that like not only that, on the bus with no headphones, audio played was his take on that, which I was proud of.
Out loud.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I apologize for this, but I have to announce that I must go. I must exit. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's Jerry. It's such a pleasure to have you. Do you have any final thoughts that we didn't get to about 2001: Space Odyssey?
No. I'm sure it'll someday just be a fast food chain.
Have you had 2001: The Burger?
Yeah,
it's a culinary odyssey.
Yeah, a burger odyssey.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But it was great talking to all of you. It was great meeting you guys. And hey,
I'll be talking to you soon. So,
yeah, duty now.
We'll talk about that in the plugs. But it's so great to have you. Thanks so much for coming on. Right. There's a chat. Thanks, Jerry, for rescuing my mind from the sinking ship of horrors they expect us to call society. Your art ignites my soul with purpose. I'll fight on as long as my body holds out. Duty now. There he goes, everybody. Jerry Casale. That's what a cool guy. That's I don't know what is happening with Forrest right now. I'm opening the pod bay doors and he's not.
His Wi-Fi is messing up.
There's also a new Jerry Casale music video. We'll put that in the comments. This is it's a lounge version of "I'm Gonna Pay You Back," which off of the great EP that came out last year. So I'm gonna put that in the in the chat, and we'll put that in the comments as well.
Exciting.
And it's got Steve Bartok from Oingo Boingo and Josh Freese, who's now in the Foo Fighters, but also from DEVO, and like 18 other bands.
Nice.
What are those guys?
Yep.
So what do we think? Is this the quintessential Kubrick film? I think it is.
Hard to argue against. I mean, like this or The Shining.
yeah, everyone's like, yeah, but The Shining and Lolita. I'm like, Lolita, I know some people in chat were like, I love Lolita. And I'm like, as someone who read the novel, I'm like, I like a little bit more controversy. I know Kubrick did say that he really wished that he could have gotten away with more of that material, but he just couldn't with all the with the Hays Code. And if he had made it like 10 years later, I think he probably would have gotten away with it more with the studio system collapsing by then, which makes perfect sense for how 2001 came out, because it was 1968.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again,
I think Dr. Strangelove is another one that's quintessentially
There's a shout out for Dr. Strangelove in the chat. I mean, well, the nice thing is it depends on your taste, right? It depends on your taste and your sensibilities. I know people that like Barry Lyndon is the one.
Yeah. But AI will never be the quintessential Kubrick film.
Right. No, definitely not.
It's a mid film if you've not seen it, but it's not.
There's
terrible.
a reason why I didn't qualify in AI month. Let's put it that way.
but I mean, just so for those of you who haven't seen it, it's not terrible. It's just not great.
Full Metal Jacket's great too.
Yes.
I mean,
I got a quick funny story about Full Metal Jacket. My uncle wanted to join the Marines, and my dad was like, "You're not gonna be able to handle it, Michael." And he's like, "I can do it." And so when they went his going away party, and they all decided to watch Full Metal Jacket. And after that, my uncle was like,
You're not going to
"Yeah,
be
I'm
able
not
to
gonna do
handle it,
this."
Michael.
Yeah, I ain't doing this. Nope.
It's I don't know why I imagined it in the HAL 9000 voice, but you're not going to be able to handle that, Michael.
I had a hard time whenever I first watched it as a kid because I saw it when I was 5, and I was very confused why the person in the red spacesuit lived while the person in the yellow spacesuit died. Because in Star Trek, it's always the other way around.
Change the world, everybody. There you
Yes.
go. I think it's. I had something to say. It's gone. It's gone. Never mind.
My work here is done.
Yeah, it took us off topic yet again. Congratulations. I think that it's notable that there are so many, like that there isn't like just a one favorite, right? For Kubrick, like there's people have different ones that they kind of stick with more. I mean, this is it for me. This is like, I love all of his movies, but there's again nothing quite like this, and often imitated and rarely well.
The most reference. I mean, I think that and The Shining are probably the most referenced films of like his, especially considering his specific adaptation of The Shining.
Right. What's insane though is they actually spent a season of Eek the Cat where they kept working in scenes from A Clockwork Orange, which is like one of the most batshit concepts, to say out loud.
Letterboxd, of course, is a place for film lovers to talk with and to each other about the movies they love, the movies that they didn't love, the movies that they fell asleep during, the movies that they had religious experiences during. All
Got
those.
high too.
Yes, I've heard that happens. And all of this is best expressed succinctly. This is something where everybody gets to have their say. Everyone gets to chime in. It's a bottom-up democracy, not just Siskel's and Eberts of the world. Everybody gets to have their say. And of course, all of that is best expressed very succinctly. You got to keep it succinct. And that is what we do on this show, which is Letterboxd One-Liners. These are the Letterboxd One-Liners for 2001, A Space Odyssey. Let's go. Don't ask me what happened. I just know it looked cool. It does look, to be fair, it does look cool.
And they liked it and gave it 4.5 stars. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, hard to argue with that.
I feel like it's a 5-star movie, but
You want to go comment on Cool Lady Sarah? By the way, she should know it's cool. Her username is Cool Lady Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there you go.
She's tapped into what is and is not cool.
Exactly. There you go.
By her name, yes.
What, you think you're Cool Lady Sarah or something? You can guess which movies are cool and what aren't? Nah, get the fuck out of here.
So people in the 60s thought that 2001 would be the peak of human intelligence and space travel, but all we got was low-waist jeans and Shrek.
Yeah.
Hey,
belly shirts.
That Shrek was an innovative film that was formative to my childhood.
Shrek 2, though, that slaps. Shrek 2 is better than Shrek 1.
Save it for your Shrek blog. We can.
My bad.
I like when I like when HAL 9000 told him get out of me swamp.
Right, get out of my swamp.
Anyway, 2001 was not like that. That's what makes that funny. All right, it's like Star Wars with all that reading at the start.
A lot less reading than Star Wars. That's amazing.
Yeah. If your metric is how much do you have to read in this movie, then
yeah. I mean, you can read the screens if you want to, but it is not required reading.
No, it's not on the syllabus at all. All right, it's shouldn't have smoked that shit. Now I'm an astral baby.
Did Jerry do this review?
No, right? I think that's amazing. How amazing must have been to first of all see it in the theater when it came out. Secondly, be on Hash. Is that what he said?
Yes.
Like that's sounds incredible. Sounds incredible. I don't know what's happening. Okay. The amount of people speedrunning joins their intermission. That's what cinema is all about. That's right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But I mean, that's what you get the fucking intermission for, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, that's apparently that's what they used to be for.
Yeah. And how many people do the fist pump that you see the Dave do?
I don't know. People are asking this more and more, though. All right. A monkey gets so excited with his bone that an astronaut with a shitty computer turns into an adult baby.
Oh, Lord.
And you know what? Nothing about that is inaccurate. That's what I got to say. Nothing about that is inaccurate. That's well done.
Wow.
I hope I never have to use a zero gravity toilet. Boy, you and me both, Tim Cup.
God, so much reading. Speaking of required reading, it said, you have to read before you use it. And it's like 10 steps, and it's like, I'm already out, man. I'm just going to, yeah.
Seems exhausting to me, frankly, and not relieving at all. My favorite Star Child is still Paul Stanley. That's right. That one's for the Kiss fan. I was actually hoping Jerry would hang out long enough to do that one. I thought
he was the Phantom of the Opera at one point. Paul Stanley.
They have a. There was a whole. There was a Kiss. What was the thing they did? Tales from the Elder.
Yeah.
There's a lot of. There's a Kiss meets Phantom of the Park too, but that's a different thing.
Yeah.
That was a TV movie, if I remember correctly. Thank you. Anyway, moving on. Me and my friends would have killed HAL 9000 with hammers. I can tell you that much.
Oh, love that. Love that.
But not a thigh bone.
No, not a thigh bone. No.
Hammers, yes.
They really missed the opportunity right there.
Well, you can always comment on Colby James's. I'm gonna fix your joke for you. What are you, a dude with a female comedian? Thank you. 11. Y'all make fun of Alexa now, but she's bound to snap one of these days.
Oh, I've heard stories of Alexa snapping like.
Anyway, those are the Letterboxd one-liners for 2001: A Space Odyssey. Please follow the show. We have an HQ account at Movie Night Extra on Letterboxd that we cover all the films that we do here, and you can read all about it and get all the awesome extra content and stuff that we generate with that. Apparently the Forrest is already outside the pod bay doors, but you can find him at Always Flacco, and he will be back shortly. I am open the pod bay doors, please, Forrest. Ironic considering what just happened. At Conan Neutron. You can find me on Letterboxd Log and all this stuff. Highbrow, midbrow, as well as Populous Fare. Follow me along for the 2024 Criterion Challenge, as well as I'm actually going to participate in the Film School Dropouts one as well. So if you guys want to follow along with that, do your own. It's a good time. It's for a specific kind of nerd, and I am that nerd. Jay, Andrew, Space Cowboy World. Oh, I have to do like some hitchhiking business to get over to you. How is this co-pilot? That explains so much. He's watching all the weirdest stuff so you don't have to. At Right About Now 2 on Letterboxd. Follow along for all his many journeys that are deeply inscrutable and detail laden. 2023 A Barbie Odyssey. At Cosmopolitics. Kristina, she's actually still at Kristina. She's logging stuff now and again. I think maybe we'll see that tick back up during Oscar season. I think maybe.
Yeah, I just did Maestro. People seem to like my review.
Fair enough. Rayyvana is a Monolith enjoyer, but I don't believe you have a Letterboxd account.
I literally just made it when you started Letterboxd one-liners.
Oh, do you really? Oh, you know what? I think I have it linked somewhere, but I assume it's just your regular.
It's just
right?
Rayyvana. It's just Rayyvana. Yeah, I literally made it like 2 minutes ago
for the bit.
I didn't want to have you come around the horn to me and once again say Rayyvana doesn't have a Letterboxd account.
Well, Sam Cedar also doesn't have a Letterboxd, so like
there you go. You're in good company. Well, you have your first follower because I just followed you. Everyone else can follow Rayyvana as well. And yeah, absolutely. So hey, Jay, Andrew, Space Cowboy World. How is our co-pilot? But does he write your plugs? Because it's time to do the plugs.
Yes, in fact, he did write my plugs. First up is YouTube. If you're watching us right now on YouTube, please do the YouTube things. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell. And of course, the big ask is to watch the video to the end. That allows other movie fans to find our content, but that also allows you to hear that great Conan Neutron song, which this is the last time we're playing it.
For a while. I mean, it's not going away for forever. But we got the adventure theme for next month, which we're going to get into.
New month, new theme.
Yeah. Exactly. We're going to get into that in the after party, explaining what's going to be going on next month. So,
yes, excited.
And of course, if you're over on Twitch, please do the Twitch things. Throw us a sub. If you happen to have an Amazon Prime account, you can subscribe for free. Doesn't cost you a penny, but actually helps out the show. So if y'all can do that, please do that. You can find us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, and I think Threads. We're on Threads, right?
Yes, we are.
Yes, Threads. That's the other one, which I need to write down. So, because there's a lot.
There's too many. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're on all of them though, much to my eternal chagrin.
Yeah. but if one of those happens to be your social media of choice, find us there and follow us and say hi, and we'll say hi back.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, and if you want to support the show, we have a Patreon. You can directly support the show that way. One of the things you get is access to our after parties, which I got to say, we got a great back catalog, and we're doing an after party tonight, right?
We are indeed.
Yes.
That's
so even though those are free, we're like drug dealers. We give it away for free, right now live. And then you got to pay to get the back catalog.
So not only are we going to reveal the movies we're doing next month for the Return of Adventure month, we're also going to do a Oscar nomination special later in the month when that gets announced. So if that's of interest to you, that's going to be something.
I'm
you
excited.
have to be a patron to check that out. So
give our thoughts.
And you can, if you're a patron, you can go back and check out our coverage from last year and be like,
right.
oh, what did these clowns do? Oh, hey, wow, these guys were on it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Conan, you have you got Protonic Reversal.
What a pitch. Yeah. Yes, I do. Protonic Reversal. Yes.
Yeah.
Gerald Casale is coming on Protonic Reversal in 2 weeks, actually, which he's been on a few times, and it's always a pleasure. So if you really want to get into Jerry's music, which he has a new single out, the lounge version of Pay You Back, just did a whole bunch of world tour stuff with DEVO. If you're remotely of interest for any of those things, then you should definitely check out Protonic Reversal coming up. I'll do Scott McDonald from Arc Boulder coming up, and actually Steve Bartek of Oingo Boingo coming up as well too. So we got a packed January coming up.
Nice. And of course, if you want to support Protonic Reversal, you can go to the Patreon, which is just $1 a month, and you get access to the episodes early.
$1, just $1 a month.
$1?
Yeah. And if you want to support more ways to support Conan Neutron, you can go to neutronfriends.bandcamp.com for his band, Conan Neutron and Secret Friends, and all their music.
Yeah, it isn't just supporting me. It's actually a good band, too. I mean,
very good. Very good.
See, Ray knows. She's seen us play.
They were fantastic. I love
I
it.
haven't.
I know.
We'll fix that at some point.
We've come about a state away from you a couple times, but yeah. But yeah, neutronfriends.bandcamp.com. Adult Prom is this split with Lung is the most recent one. Plenty of cool stuff in the hopper. Plenty to talk about that I can't talk about yet, but stay tuned. There's going to be some announcements in the next few weeks.
And it being the holiday season too, you can you can buy everything. Just digitally download it all for a really fair price, I think. I don't remember what it is, but it's a good price.
I don't either, but there's a lot of it.
Yeah, it's a lot of music, and it's a good price.
That's right.
There you have
Most
it.
importantly, I get the money.
There we go.
That's right, your old friend Uncle Alligator here.
Welcome back, buddy.
You know what I love better than money? Nothing. Love it. Also a good picture being greenlit. But anyway, money mostly.
Exactly. There you go. And Kristina is over on Twitch. You can find all of her great insights. Was there anything you had planning coming out?
Well, every year on Christmas Eve, we watch Ernest Saves Christmas because it's the best Christmas movie ever. I will not debate anyone on that. And now that we're in that weird time between Christmas and New Year's where we don't know what day, or I'm assuming it's the year 2525. I could be wrong. But we're going to be doing our year in review where we slowly but surely go over the stuff that's happened in the year, Titanic, submersible implosions, movies, music, politics. It's gonna be fun these next few days, and also too, I'm gonna have a New Year's Eve stream, so we're gonna party like it's 2023,
which is the current date. So that's good.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's good.
No partying in the future like Prince did.
No.
But if you're on that cocaine.
I thought that, no joke, I thought that song came out in 1999 and not in 1984.
That would have really limited the shelf life.
Yeah.
No, he was smart.
A novelty song.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was smart with it. Get that 15 years before, it has expiration.
Right. Lay the groundwork.
And afterwards, it's nostalgia.
All my favorite albums are turning 25 this like coming week, and I'm like, oh my god.
She really is partying like it's 1999.
Yeah.
There you have it, people. And of course, you can support Kristina over on Patreon as well. It's patreon.com/cosmopolitics.
There you go.
There we go. Yes. Okay. And Rayyvana's over there, host of Taking the L, and a lot of times on TYT, doing TYT things.
Enjoying those monoliths is what she's doing.
Yes. Wait, that's not for your OnlyFans?
Good one.
Only monoliths.
Only monoliths.
Anyway, we do have fun here, but yes, follow her on the things because she's all over that biz.
All of the things: Twitch, Twitter, now Letterboxd.
There you go.
Couldn't be left out again. So yeah, follow me on that app as well. I will not be posting regularly, but I'm really selling it. So
hey, keep talking. Yeah,
I'm gonna be honest. I don't have so much time to dedicate to movies right now because I'm halfway through my rewatch of One Piece, which is an odyssey of its own with over 1,000 episodes. So yeah, I've really got to lock in to get through that.
Are you watching the live action one when that comes out, or is that already out?
I haven't seen it. It is out. I haven't seen it. I heard it was good, but it just doesn't line up with where I am in the show. So I'm just gonna wait till I finish getting through the show, and then I'll go back and I'll watch the live action.
Okay.
Wow, it started in 1999, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
I used to watch it on TV when I was a kid, and so now it's funny to it's still going on. The show has not ended yet. So
and if you know anything about how the comics are published, it's still like the #1 comic in Japan. They have to vote on these things every month. So that's how they know it. And if you go to like the comic shops, you can have like statues of One Piece there. It's wild.
It is huge.
And like nobody knows about it in the States.
It is, but it's genuinely. I jest that it's an odyssey, but like it is a very intelligently created, show. The Oda, the creator of it, is a fucking genius. And like,
what happened?
Follow me on Twitch. I talk about it at length. How much I love the show. So if
I want to rewatch Peaky Blinders.
What happens if Japan misses a month on their monthly voting for the comic of the year? Do they does Japanese society just fall apart?
Godzilla rises.
That's why do you think
you want Godzillas? Because this is how we get Godzillas.
Shinzo Abe happened because they didn't vote that month.
Mishima, am I right?
It was a combination of that, and that's when the guy realized that the Moonies had killed his mom.
Right.
He's like, oh my god! Now that I have all this extra time,
the #1 anime.
Checking on my mom, she's been dead for 10 years because of the fucking Moonies.
All right, come on, let's move it along. What was it, Rayyvana? Did we do Jerry's already?
No, we have not.
Let's do Jerry's plugs because we really appreciate having him back. It is his 3rd time on the show.
Mm-hmm.
He was on Spinal Tap, of course, and Don't Look Up with the other one.
Yes. So I think the first time he was on, Andy had really bad internet connect, if I remember correctly.
No, the first time he had bad internet connection. Second time I had bad internet connection.
Snap correction.
Well, no, but that makes it funnier, to be honest. Like,
it's
every time Jerry's on, somebody has
somebody's internet connection devolved somehow.
Like yours, Forrest.
Yeah, someone's gonna.
I'm saying this time I have the one with the internet problems.
And I thought it would be me.
So anyway, Jerry's plugs. Can we?
Yeah.
Do you have those or no?
No, I don't. I forgot to.
Jesus Christ. Okay. So Pay You Back lounge version. DEVO's Gerald V. Casale. There's all over the DEVO YouTubes as well as anywhere you would get DEVO music. You can also follow Jerry specifically, not just DEVO, on Instagram, on Facebook, and on X. I guess we're supposed to call it now, right?
No.
And
you can dead name it.
And he's on all.
Time to dead name something as X.
He's on all those. Look, I'm doing your fucking bit for you, dude. Can you shut the fuck up?
I'm doing your bit.
I did the bit pretty well last time, right?
And Andy purposely did this so that he could heckle you this time.
Before
the end of the year. This is his last chance to heckle you.
I guess I gave him a late Christmas present. Anyway, so yeah, please follow Jerry on all the things. He's fantastic. Lots of new music coming from Jerry Casale as well as his appearance on Controversial coming up, which should be good.
Yeah. I also like the idea that DEVO is fucking like, all right, this is our last tour. Like, you know, we're ending this soon. And then they're like, here's a bunch of new music, which I guess is what you do.
Well, it's Jerry's music. It isn't DEVO music, which there is a distinction for, because there's a lot of people that love DEVO and aware of DEVO, but are not aware that there's stuff in Jerry's name. The Invisible Man EP is one of them, and it's good. I mean, if you like DEVO, you're gonna like it. That's all I'm gonna say. And there's some great videos for it. There's a great 4D video for this lounge version of Pay You Back that's like pretty wild. There's a whole VR element. It's a whole thing. Always future forward, those DEVO guys.
Yeah, when he was yelling about right-wing incels, which was hilarious, I was thinking like, but that's like kind of de-evolution, right? Like that's like society is devolving into that. Like
Anyway, final thoughts, guys.
Oh wait, I wanted to play the
last time I jumped in, Andy just tried to take my role, so I'm not going to do it again.
This is the Arthur C. Clarke clip that everybody plays, where he's talking about AI and warning, and this is a good clip to end our AI month watch with, I guess.
Oh sure, yeah.
Mm.
All right, get this comment on here.
Was it for you a pleasing experience? Did the movie portray the world that you had seen when you wrote the book?
Well, it was an overwhelming experience, because although I had seen most of the rushes at various times over the previous couple of years, this was the first time I saw the complete thing, and with the sound, which is a very important element. And it was a shattering experience, but at the same time a wonderful one. I've now seen it 8 times, and each time I like it more.
Is this a movie that is solidly based on scientific fact? I mean, can you make a strong case for what you see in the movie as
yes,
scientific basis?
Absolutely. I'm prepared to argue for all the hardware to look something like this: the spacecraft, the spacesuits, the space stations, all these things which are shown in great detail are very firmly based on today's technology, extrapolated 3 decades into the future.
Mr. Clarke, in your book, Profiles of the Future, at the back of it, you have a graph or chart indicating the future, and you have set out a timetable as to what the future holds in the way of scientific development as you see it.
Ballsy move, by the way. You never want to do that. You never want to put the timetable on there.
Biology, chemistry, and physics, and so on. And in the year 2001, you, for example, have said that we'll be colonizing planets.
This is, I think, likely. We'll certainly be starting the colonization of the moon quite early in the next century, possibly even in this century.
We didn't do any of that.
1980, we'll be establishing the first bases on the moon, rather like those in the Antarctic. But later we'll try and make them self-contained and self-sufficient, growing their own food locally, providing oxygen and water from local lunar resources. And then, maybe around the turn of the century, we'll be doing the same thing on at least Mars and perhaps some of the other planets or satellites of the planets.
Living an encapsulated life.
First of all, we will have to live in fairly restricted quarters. Later, in perhaps cities under geodesic domes, like the one that Professor Fuller built at Expo recently, but perhaps even miles across eventually.
So, looking ahead to some of these things, which certainly will occur in the lifetime of most people watching this interview, you've indicated possibility of artificial intelligence by the year 2000. What do you mean by that?
Yes, well, this, in fact, is something which we have in the movie, this computer HAL, who takes over the operation. Many computer scientists think that we will develop, before the end of the century, machines which are intelligent by any way you care to define that word. In fact, there are some computers now that can carry on conversations with you over an electric typewriter, and people just will not believe they are talking to a machine, even though the present conversation is limited to rather restricted areas. But many scientists think that in the next century we will have machines which are more intelligent than us. And of course, this may be one of the great divides in history.
Yeah, that moon stuff didn't happen, but the AI stuff is pretty interesting.
I mean, he was trying to sell books. Like if he was like, "Oh, this is coming way down the road," I feel like people would have been like, "All right." But it's ballsy. fucking ballsy as fuck to like put a timeline on it. You know what I mean? You're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, this is the one. This is gonna because like that's how Nostradamus I feel like got away with all his predictions.
Oh, all the doomsday and
no timeline. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like, this is just some stuff that's gonna happen in the future, and wherever similar stuff happens, you could be like, wow, Nostradamus predicted this.
Yeah.
And whenever
See?
stuff that he didn't predict happened, you're like, well, that could still happen. Like,
doesn't mean it's not gonna, does it? So's what you know. All right, so wrapping this up or what? What's happening? So
Rayyvana, you got some final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I thought it was a fantastic film. I really enjoyed the emotions that it invokes through the images and the choice in music and the lack of dialogue. I think gives you a lot of time to sit and absorb the movie that it's a luxury that you don't get with a lot of films, and it adds such an important element to it. My recommendation to everyone, though, if you haven't yet, try to watch the film on a phone with a broken screen. It really just changes the dynamic and contributes an important factor to your viewing experience. Water damage too, so that you have nice green lines going across the top and bottom of the screen that sort of impedes your vision.
Fantastic.
I mean, what could be better than that? Kristina?
Hal did nothing wrong.
I mean, like, definitionally, he didn't, like...
But yeah, quintessential Kubrick film.
They didn't tell him... They should have told him at least keep one guy alive to experience whatever it is. Like, they forgot to mention that in his directive.
It's true.
Yeah. I don't know. Conan?
Oh, you're me. Okay. Cinematic achievement, almost more imposing and influential than the monoliths within. It's the high watermark to which space epics should be measured against, and one of the finest examples of dreaming about humanity's path. I have to say that I think it is the most influential science fiction film of all times, and apparently a rite of passage for various types of conscious-altering substances for multiple generations. Yeah, this precise cinematic perfection, regimented and controlled, and it's considered very best for a number of reasons. I said it before, I'll say it again. Visual effects from 55 years ago still look unique and interesting and immersed without distraction.
Mm-hmm.
And they do so with a wordless abstraction and endlessly eye-dazzling color, and a classical music score that seems as inexorable as it is perfect, contrasted with, as we've aforementioned, long dialogueless sections. HAL 9000 has to be one of the most compelling figures in cinematic history as well. And it's still a strange cautionary tale in the modern world of artificial intelligence. And as mentioned, the fact that we feel empathy for an AI as its conscience slowly slips away after everything it did is kind of astounding and great filmmaking. One of my favorites of all time.
All right, Andy, this is a gift to you. Don't take us off topic.
All right, I'll try not to, but bear with me here. When we first had Jerry on here, I thought to myself, this is like the old joke about the country song. What happens when you play a country song backwards? You get your woman back, you get your dog back, you get your pickup truck back, and you get a 6-pack of beer. What happens when you play 2001 Space Odyssey backwards? You get a DEVO album.
Yeah. Not bad.
Yeah, not bad. Yeah. But no, this is absolutely wild movie to watch. The colors, the thoughtfulness that goes into slowly ratcheting things up to get to the point where you're just showing colors on the screen and you're sitting there just staring at it, even if you're not on drugs, just like really, taking it all in. Because it really is just a feast for your eyes. I was really happy because I actually watched it on my HD TV, which I've not seen it in HD before, and it looked way better than my shitty CRT TV. That last time I watched it.
You should see it on a cracked iPhone. It's amazing.
Yeah, no,
I got that. I got that cracked iPhone to watch 2001. You want some?
But I know that's what I'm looking forward to next, to seeing it on the cracked iPhone.
Right.
As the director
with water
intended.
damage.
Yeah.
Yes. Director intended.
I was looking at old like Facebook memories the other day, and there was a thing where we were talking about aliens, and I was like, yeah, well, fuck you, James Cameron. I watched this shit on an iPhone, and that was.
That's right. We're brand consistent on this show.
Yes. But speaking of brand consistent, I did want to actually bring it back to the Ad Astra episode, which did not have Conan. And we went through the history of sci-fi movies, and we kind of used this film as a benchmark for that. So throughout the history of this show, we've constantly, used this as the bar, and it's finally nice to actually talk about it so we can understand why we set this as a bar in so many past episodes.
True. All right, well, we're gonna do an after party, and I think my internet issues are fixed, so
Yeah,
excited about that.
Speaking of bars,
now that the A-list guest is gone, your internet issues are fixed. Great.
Yeah.
I was on for most of the episodes.
The other A-list
yeah.
guest.
Well,
Your A-list in my heart, Rayyvana. Trust me.
Yes.
We'll see you over there.